Israel from the West Bank. It is not a racial separation, because in my building in French Hill, close to half of the families are Arab Israeli citizens. My building is very much a mixture of Jewish and Arab, and that's becoming more the case in French Hill. And the process you're describing, certainly about East and West Jerusalem mixing, is becoming more of a fact. But I'm speaking specifically in my neighborhood of Israeli citizens who are Arab or Palestinian, moving into a neighborhood that was Jewish. And now it's very much an Arab Jewish neighborhood. What that means is that it's also my Arab Israeli neighbors who look out at the wall from the same direction I do. That wall separates Israeli citizens from Palestinians, whether the Israelis are Jews or Arabs. So it's not a racial wall. It was built during the Second Intifada to prevent suicide bombings from happening, and it was quite successful. Among the biggest supporters in Israeli society of the wall were actually Israelis on the left, because they saw the wall as the beginning of a border, as eventually marking the West Bank off from Israel. The biggest opponents of the wall were the settlers, for the same reason. They were on the wrong side of the wall. The settlers were saying, this is not the way to deal with the suicide bombings, this shows weakness. We are sending a signal that eventually we're going to build a border here, which is exactly right. That's one reason I supported the wall. I supported it for security reasons, and I supported it because it's the first step toward marking the West Bank off from Israel. So you have to be very careful with the terminology and with the reasons for why that wall exists. In terms of a one-state versus a two-state solution, when I think of what a one-state solution would look like, I immediately think of Yugoslavia, which is bringing together ethnic groups, different nations that hated each other, that fought an existential war for decades, and then suddenly we're expected in the communist era to live happily ever after. As soon as communism fell, Yugoslavia just devoured itself. And that's exactly what I think would happen in a one-state solution. Very often, supporters of a one-state solution really mean the disintegration of Israel, really mean turning the one place where the Jewish people is a majority, turning the Jews back into a tolerated, at best, tolerated minority, and at worst, which is what I think will happen, an endangered minority. And so the solution that I want to see, and it's not a good solution, a two-state solution is not a good solution for all kinds of reasons. The land is really small. Each people, as I mentioned earlier, has deep connections to all of the land. It's not a good solution. It creates problems and security dangers and complications for both peoples. But the alternative is Yugoslavia. The alternative is Kosovo and Sarajevo, and maybe worse. And that's something that I think would be a disaster for both peoples.
So, like, a lot of my, like, I don't think it just tearing down the wall and just letting all the Palestinians and Israelis put together, like, all at once would be a good idea. That'd be, you're right, probably be disastrous. But at the same time, like, a lot of my Palestinian friends, they see that, like, Israeli and Jewish developments in the land have been pretty good. And, like, most of them are going to Hebrew University or Tel Aviv, universities in Tel Aviv. And so, like, I feel like a gradual integration of letting Palestinians in the West Bank achieve citizenship and coming into the land, like, probably with immigration screenings and stuff like that, like how America's proposed, like citizenship tests to be allowed into part of the country.
Do you bring Gaza into this one state?
I mean, I think people in Gaza should get a chance. Not all of Gaza. I'm saying that we shouldn't let all the radicals in it as well.
Okay, I think that the way to solve an existential war, a war where two peoples have fought for really 100 years, over life and death issues, where each side justifiably sees this war as a war of survival, to then bring those two people into one nation. As I say, I think that there is no way that can reasonably work. And there's also for me as an Israeli, as a Jew, there are 22 Arab majority countries. There are 56 Muslim states, most of whom are governed to one extent or another by Muslim law. There is one Jewish majority state. And that is something that I personally feel the Jewish people needs for all kinds of reasons. Not only as a safe refuge if Jews need a place to go to, but more so, not just as a physical refuge, but as the one place where being the majority guarantees that Judaism and Jewish identity and Jewish civilization will continue. I think America is great for Jews. I'm not so sure it's great for the Jewish people, great for Judaism. The only place where I know for certain that Judaism and Jewish civilization will continue for as long as we exist is Israel, because we're the majority culture there. And so in the modern world, in a world of globalization, small peoples need national sovereignty. And that's another reason. For me, that's a very powerful reason. I also do feel very strongly that the Jewish people is still a physically endangered people in different parts of the world, and we need one place where we know that there is guaranteed entry, no matter what, for Jews. At the same time, I don't want Israel, and it can't be, an all-Jewish state. And I was very much opposed to the Jewish state law, which only defined Israel as a Jewish state, instead of saying Israel is the state of the Jewish people, and it is the state of all of its citizens, whether or not they are Jews. That's crucial for me. And so there's an argument. We are having, as most societies today in the world are having very deep and significant debates, internal debates about their national identity. That's happening to us as well. And one of the reasons why I'm so committed to being an Israeli is because what happens in Israel really matters to me. And I think it's really important for the future of the Jewish people. And I want to be there. I want to be part of that debate. I don't want to leave it to the forces that I feel will be taking the Jewish people in the direction that we should go. But I need a framework of Jewish national sovereignty in order to have those arguments, in order to work out the issues of who we are as a people.
My main issue is that note of fact, as I'm a professional factologist. So the wall was originally proposed by Amram Mitzna, who was the mayor of Haifa, and I can't remember which year it was, but he was the Labor Party's candidate for prime minister.
The year 2000.
And even within the Labor Party, he was on the left wing of the Labor Party.
Yes.
So the notion of the wall actually came from the Israeli left, but his idea was to build the wall essentially on the green line, more or less on the green line, and say, all right, that's yours, this is ours.
Unilateral withdrawal.
Exactly. It is only when Ariel Sharon, from the right, co-opted the notion of the wall that started doing this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So back to the cards. This one's a little long, so I'm just going to truncate it and get to the heart of it. The question that's in here. Why is it up to Palestinians, or the Palestinians, to end the occupation? I'm thinking of what you said about threats to Israel's legitimacy.
Yes. It's not up to the Palestinians to end the occupation. Ultimately, it's up to the occupier. But in order to get Israeli society to the point where it can again begin to think about withdrawal, as we did in the 1990s, we need to get back to that point. We need to hear some voices from Palestinian society, from the Arab world, saying we accept your legitimacy here. Anwar Sadat came to Israel in November 1977. He was the president of Egypt. Israel at that point was occupying the Sinai. The day before Sadat showed up in Israel, he was one of the most hated men among Israelis. He had launched a surprise attack against Israel during the Yom Kippur War of 1973, and Anwar Sadat was detested. He comes to Israel, speaks in the Israeli parliament, and declares, we accept you as part of this region. The next day, there were crowds of tens of thousands of Israelis cheering him as a national hero. Squares were named after Anwar Sadat. And so, in order to break this logjam, there needs to be we need to hear something from the Arab world, and and it's not necessarily even from the Palestinians. We need to hear some argument in the Arab world about who the Jews are, in the same way that Israeli society has vigorously debated who are the Palestinians. And voices like mine are by no means isolated. They're pretty normative. So is the right. But voices affirming the legitimacy of Palestinian national identity are normative in Israel. I know Palestinians who believe that Israel and the Jewish people are part of the region, that we are an indigenous people just as they are. But those voices can't be expressed publicly. The letters that I've gotten from Palestinians in response to the book, affirming the dual indigenousness of both of our peoples, those letters come with a request, please don't use my name publicly. I'm planning to have an epilogue, a new epilogue in the paperback edition of this book, which will be called Letters from Palestinians to an Israeli Neighbor. And it will be a compendium of some of the more interesting letters that I've received, good, bad, and otherwise. But what's depressing about that is that I won't be able to use names, with one or two rare exceptions. And so we need, it's not up to the Palestinians to end the occupation, but the whole region has to take responsibility for breaking the logjam. And I'm by no means exempting Israel. And I would start by blaming my government for continuing to build in the settlements. That for me is obvious. I was on a panel the other night, and the moderator asked each of us, if you were the Prime Minister of Israel, name the three things you would do. And the first thing I said I would do is free settlements. And so that for me is a given. But if there's going to be some movement toward peace, it's not enough for the Palestinian leaders to say we're the victims. Everyone has to take some measure of responsibility for trying to end this conflict.
So building on that exact theme, this question is, do you feel that there is any benefit to Israelis and Palestinians acknowledging that they have both done horrible things to one another, for example, to provide healing to both sides of painful history and start to facilitate empathy for one another?
Yes, but I don't think it's going to happen. It won't happen on the Palestinian side because the notion of apologizing to Israel for whatever acts were done by Palestinians against Israelis is absolutely anathema. I once met with a Palestinian, actually a Christian minister, a well-known guy, Naim Atik. And I said to him, I raised exactly that point. I said, I know what my side needs to apologize for to your side, and I'm ready to make that apology. What do you think your side needs to apologize to my side for? And he laughed and he said, nothing. I said nothing, you know, each side has done some pretty nasty things to the other over the last 100 years. And he said, yes, but everything we did to you was in response to what you did to us first. And I know many Israelis who would say the same thing. If you were to mention to Israelis whose families come from the Jewish communities of the Middle East, whose families have origins in the Middle East, that Israel is going to need to apologize to the Palestinians for uprooting the Palestinians in 1948, they would simply be incredulous. They would say 750,000 Jews fled or were expelled from the entire Arab world. There were 1 million Jews in the Arab world in 1948. There are about 40,000 today. These were ancient Jewish communities. The Jews of Iraq go back probably 2,500 years, Yemen probably 2,000 years. And within a period of 10, 15 years, the entire Jewish world of the Middle East was erased. And so the notion that Israel has to apologize to the Arabs would be outrageous for Jews from Arab countries, and they actually are a majority today of Israeli society. The majority of Israeli Jews come from families who lived in one part of the Middle East and came to another part of the Middle East. So I don't know how to get around that. I also don't expect Palestinians who are really the losers of this conflict. You can't expect them to apologize. What I can see is an Israeli apology to the Palestinians and an apology from the Arab League, representing the Arab world, to the Jews who were expelled and or had to flee. That's something that I could see happen. And that would really be a dynamic that would be very healing, whether it's possible or not. As we say in the Middle East, God is great.